saying, we dance, we will be none. Bioluminescence. Bioluminescence. Cumulus clouds, bright with city lights, are spread across the sky beyond the curtains, parted for a moment by a child's hand. Saffron clouds, like living beings, drifting in their native habitat, expanding and diminishing with breath or with their will, their presence changing streets to ocean floors or unfamiliar plains, with worries formed in quiet homes displaced, as life on earth is understood again, beneath the peaceful glow of other lives subsisting on the currents of the sky, or, more than that, like blessings of the gods, gathering the earth within their care, reminding those below that daily life is not forgotten, nor beyond their plans. The clouds drift slowly by, covering the sky beyond the curtains, luminous with lights of streets and homes, where life's observed and understandings altered by their purpose. The Blanket Man. This was inspired by a man in Pinelands and several men who live in their blankets, about the distance between people. The Blanket Man. He wanders through the twilight of the suburb. House lights glow amid their creaking trees, and smells of cooking mingle on the winds as he goes by, a blanket round his shoulders, walking roads that only lead away beneath the stillness of a fading sky. After Eloise, circa 1130, this was adapted from a part of the first letter of Eloise to Abelard, the great medieval lovers, after they'd been parted and she was in a convent. After Eloise, still I love, I'll start again. Still I love, and yet must hope for nothing. Though I flee the world we knew, I find I can't renounce the one I love. I love, for neither vows nor convents still my heart. I've not been turned to marble, resting here forgetful of my loss in cloistered quiet, gazing from my niche on centuries to calm the souls of those who pass before me. Tell me as a lover to submit to your commands. Let me feel your hand relieve their weight. Tell me of the blessings that they bring, and solitude will not appear so dreadful. Hearts once moved like mine are not soon made serene, but fluctuate instead from love to hate before at last they reach tranquility. Your songs proclaimed our joy through many lands. Is it not right to speak of this new joy? Teach me in the ways of heaven's love. Speak to me, that by my guidance I might live without you. This is called Wakening. She'll dream of happiness again tonight, where once she would have dreamt of tangled things. Their clutching grasp not drugged to feebleness. She's free to drift with one she loves, or yet another. Being young again, with those she knew, and others wills them. Passing through a vivid world whose strangeness only shows in its departure. She dwells a moment more, half in joy and half in lust, before the warmth of touch quite disappears, and they must wake to ghosts and fearfulness, into a body none has ever held. Under Saturn, I see us in a vernal land, where seedless flowers bud and bloom on godless towns, where generations pass untroubled by the tomb, where until fields give up their fruit, and oak trees flow with honey. And there, where Saturn has returned, and orders live in harmony, where wolves lap streams by careless flocks, I'll live with you as we would be, where untilled fields give up their fruit, and oak trees flow with honey. Photograph. This was inspired by my very early childhood in New Zealand. A child lies sleeping in his denim outfit, slumped across a poof. Behind him sits a small, dark tabby cat, crouched to watch an early Auckland dusk through sliding doors. Click. The tabby hears her people move. The camera put away. The boy picked up, perhaps, and carried on the corridor to bed. And later she may slip outside to prowl among the roses and the reeds, and feel the air she knows across her fur, in moments never caught by photographs or touched by thoughts of moments yet to come. Planet, headed by a line from Coleridge. It's a strange place, this limbo. It's from one of his last great poetic fragments, an internal landscape. The planet. A strange place, this planet, orbiting a small and distant sun, stripped of atmosphere by solar winds, or some catastrophe as yet unstudied. And who is there to study it and call it a catastrophe? The undulating plains, the mountain spires, are bare of life. The unprotected surface, pocked with craters, unobserved, with none to hear the muted fall of rock and metal shattering the land, with clouds of dust erupting to the bright unblinking stars. At times a storm will rise, not cold, not hot, more cold than hot if there were life to judge, and all the skies obscured, the land abraded. But there may come a day a module lands, an unseen flash of light across the sky that settles on the still primeval dust. And watchful beings move across the planet, guarded from the barrenness and storms by suits and shelter shaped by age's knowledge. They may come upon two needle peaks and see great galaxies between their heights, and watch the light of stars on ancient cliffs and trackless plains, or reach a crater's edge and raise their faces to a golden sky, to feel the sunlight of another noon, as in those early hours of the planet, they look on it and call it beautiful. The house on the hill.
Stuart, you're fading slightly in and out when you read. You need to talk more directly into your phone.
Try. The house on the hill. Who would choose to live in a house like this? But those who watched the endless plains and found no life beneath their sun or moon, no shelter from the heat or sweeping rains. Who would choose to live in a house like this? But those who've known no other. On a hill, as if to watch the plains a little further. It might appear serene when all is still, but when the breezes stir, the windows moan, and deep within the hill foundations grown, and we must board the windows, bar the doors, and though the storm still blows, replace each stone, so winds to come may find no further purchase. Little's left intact, a house remains, though who would choose to live in a house like this? But those who've watched the endless plains and found no grasses reaching to the sun. No circling birds to tell of death below. But there's a storm to come, and it will fall, and then where will we go? Where will we go? Another world. This is from a section dealing with death, mortality. Another world. Another world was lost tonight. Another mind through which we passed in memory and hope. It's lost, and we had hoped that it would last a little more than this, at least. But all we were to her is gone, while all she was to us remains with us. And so we carry on.
But it might be in a different order for other people, so they might not see us there.
Reparation.
Yeah.
Thankful that our lives had crossed, and yet a world was lost tonight, and she remains, and we are lost. After the funeral, I wrote this after my dad's death. The sky is blue beyond the sliding doors, with tufts of clouds dispersing as they pass above the shattering world. As on the days we go to Fisher Beach and Dad would take us, diving off the rocks to swim with goggles over sunlit sand, and shoals of tiny fish would flicker by. Or days he'd spend when still a boy, with friends along a river's marshy banks, as fat Latano watched from shadow pools, and life held secrets yet to be explored amid the rustling reeds, with parents waiting at adventure's end. Or days when children laugh again outside, and hurry on, excited by the life that lies ahead, as tufts of clouds disperse, and there's no one to tell them what there was. And I read this at his funeral, to wake the dead. We'll sing to those who cannot hear, or if they hear, we cannot know. We'll sing to them, and tears will flow for all we held and still hold dear, and all that we must still forget. But in the middle of our song, imagine those for whom we long have heard us, though they're sleeping yet. They hear, they wake, they rise again to move among us as we play. Stay, my loves, they cannot stay. Life can't be as it was then. Too soon the notes no longer play, and we must take ourselves to bed, to sleep as if among the dead, then wake to meet a silent day. Hour. The hour is uncertain, that we know, and so the hour's unreal, half out of time. Although we might imagine it, although we choose from sickness, chance, or crime, does one appear more likely than the rest? And if it does, how else might it unfold? Will you make a last defiant jest, or will you dream, forgetting that you're old? And yet our deaths will have their certain hours, when we'll perhaps have better things to do, parting us from all that had been ours, and all who loved us from the lives they knew. Quite a few of my poems are to do with or concern non-human life. This is called The Killing Schedule. It's about an abattoir. The Killing Schedule. I die untouched by gentle thoughts of those who would condemn this end, the strangeness of this earthless place in which our lives are penned. I remember gentle flanks and smells of food and life I knew, but I have no words nor wish to pass these memories to you. Nor can I know that all that was other than it seemed to me, and led me to this earthless place and all that's yet to be. But still I feel, and still I fear, and still we're made to trudge along the path, this path to ends I cannot know, but that I know are wrong, through smells of blood and cleanliness, and sounds no creature ever made, and wary calls of sheep and shouts of men, and I'm afraid. My body swings, my body shakes, my life is yours, is hers, is his, and this a world that shouldn't be, and mustn't be, and is. And then, For Whom There Is No Grief, which was commissioned by AFBO in 2019. I grieve for those for whom there is no grief, though it brings no comfort or relief to them, and little happiness to me. But there it is, because they were as we are now. They were alive, and now are not. And we will soon be held by urn or plot, or scattered to the winds. Perhaps that's so, or partly so. But what a snake might know and see and feel through serpent's eyes and skin must be so unalike, so unakin to human life. There might seem little room for empathy despite the common doom. Did I say snake? Moles then, or ducks, all things that fear or are content, things on wings and paws and fins, things that kill each other, things for which I would have had another end, all for which there is no grief, no graveside tears or comforting belief in afterlives, both cats and humans left alone without concern, none left bereft. I grieve for those for whom there is no grief, because it brings no comfort or relief, because I cannot call on them to rise and breach the walls of paradise. And on a happier note, on cats, this is just the first section. It begins with a quote from Montaigne. When I play with my cat, who knows if I'm more of a plaything to her than she is a plaything to me. On cats. Here I lie, reluctantly at rest, as analgesics go about their work. The cats are resting, tranquilly, I think, one beneath a bush within the garden, fenced for their protection, one in bed beneath the table, lying with a friend, and one luxuriating in the porch's warmth, living through their history, through minds and senses shaped by centuries of trial and travel, small ancestral creatures crossing vanished plains and back again to find the grain and mice of fertile lands. And there, in cultivation, something changed. Something over mice and raged grain. It isn't pleasant. I wish mice no harm. But Libica accepted partnership. Of all the many, Libica alone. And supple figures padded through the stalls, traveling trading routes, the bane of rodents, nurtured and then altered by affection, sometimes fleeing violent superstition, changing human customs as they lived through centuries' companionship and work, their paw prints on the pages of our past. And I'd like to dedicate that to Winnie Thompson, who loved cats. Indian hawthorn. The bees are buzzing in the flowers as she dozes where she sits, half beyond the buzzing, the passing hours. soothed by busy humming. It's the height of spring, and on a breeze there drifts the scent that calls the bees. Though what antennae might perceive must be quite other than she knows, like their facets, as they weave amid a world that never shows itself to her. How strange it seems, the bees are busy as she dreams. Dogs are playing. This comes from my childhood and our dogs, Flash and Bianca, and our cat Musa at home. Dogs are playing on the mountainside. Oh God, sorry. I hit the wrong thing. Dogs are playing. Dogs are playing on the mountainside. Two dogs and children in a forest stream that ripples down from pool to rocky pool, parting leaves to pass as in a dream to other clearings, called by sounds and smells of forest life and by adventures read and shared and yet diverse experience, to travel on and know what lies ahead, as in a dream we pass to other worlds, accepting the reality of all we meet, beguiled by their strangeness though we are. Uncertain of what might befall, we reach a forest glade, a secret lair, turning stones to see what's hidden there, listening to the calls of forest birds, bright and piercing in the humid air as water ripples coolly round our feet towards the sea, far from where it rose in mountain depths, tannin-stained yet sweet, with much to tell a snuffling canine nose. But what was told, what adventures known, like children's tales of which you weren't aware, mingling words with waterfalls and leaves, but which, to be, required your presence there. And if I found my way back there today, and dreamt again of all that there might be, along the stream, beyond unparted leaves, what would I dream but you were there with me? Then I come to a section of historical poems. This is words for dear Twain, who was a member of the Khoisan people, who contributed greatly to the Lloyd archive. It begins with a quote from him. And we perceived a thing which looked like a little child as it sat upon the saucepan. And he and his companions believed that was his first wife, returned in an altered form. Something will remain to mark the last, gathered here, far from all we knew, and guarded in this village by the sea. The songs of lands where I was born and grew and killed, yes, killed, and it was self-defense. The judge knew it was so when I was brought before him, following the journey south from where we sang, where in my life we caught the water bowl, and rain fell where we willed, where still when rains return the fields bloom with many colours, and fill the air with smells like honey, far, so far from this, my room beneath the mountains. I must leave and look for those I knew while I have breath. My chest is growing weak, and I should stay, I'm told. But even in this village, death will come. We found him here, the friend who wrote my tales. Now it's found another friend. The letter came to us some days ago. He knew the past, and soon there'll be an end to stories told in our shamanic dreams. I want to find my family and the songs where they survive in the grass and bush, somewhere in the land while it belongs to them and they to it, and where our language will remain the medium of life a little longer. I have no illusions. There will be no moderation of the strife between the peoples, and we will not win this conflict. When commandos came, we felt our blood turn into smoke surrounding us in which we fought. But I have seen it flood the ground when they departed. I've heard the guns and seen the fences, seen diminished herds. It's not the blood remaining in our people to guard us from the future. I leave my words with you who learnt my language, with you, his sister, and his wife, your children and this place, this oak-lined street, this portion of that city by the sea, the ruin of my race. A world is lost, and yet the words will keep a glimpse of our existence at its end. Is that not so? They will be understood. Or is it on our world that they depend for understanding? But there's no time for more. You who mourn will understand my need for what I've lost. I'll travel to Calvinia and follow news and rumors where they lead, and hope to find my children somewhere under speaking stars, where we'll have much to sing. They'll tell of life across that arid land and listen to the stories that I bring of you. And in the spring we'll feast on corns of wildflowers. Today it's time to go, but I may come again, bringing tales I found, so in the future people know what has been lost. No longer in their language, something in the stories will survive. They'll reappear in unfamiliar forms, the ghost of a tradition once alive. Just another dream. Exodus. This is taken from the point of view of someone looking back on the Exodus. Though ears of barley rise from fertile fields, as in a dream once dreamt in arid lands, when fire shimmered on the desert sands and people spoke of hope beyond their years. The sparkling water falls to rocky pools, to splash in bowls in workers' stone-walled homes, and children grow to know ancestral lands. The thoughts of evening turn to those forbidden them. We made a mausoleum of sands more sacred than the art of generations, raising stones on consecrated earth. And though the stores grow full with wine and grain, and precious oils and folds of flax and wool, they have no tongues to taste, no flesh to touch, no ears to hear the lowing of the herds at close of day. Would they have been content if they were here, with loved ones whom I buried where they died? Or would they judge this still too dearly gained, and find a journey's dreams must dissipate in life as it is lived, with worries that our labour seeks to still, as seasons pass and able bodies tire, and generations spread across a land surrounded by the strength of many nations. Evening's sun is gold across the town, high upon its hill, as workers wander home through growing dusk and tufts of smoke emerge from homesteads neat amid the vines and fields of wheat, where others might have lived and grown in strength untroubled by their dreams, to gaze across the riches of this land and rest beneath the terebinth and oak. I now come to the last section, beginning with Nocturne, which is a sort of rejection of all the claims which modern media has on us. Nocturne. The need for answers wearies the reply. Give no further thought to mortal plight, but close the page and nod off where you lie. You'll get no closer to the truth tonight. Some believe, or doubting that it's true, dream they make it true in what they write. Once perhaps they'd have enwritten you. You'll get no closer to the truth tonight. To reasons they might hide or not have guessed, and so with reason think they have it right. And judgments might be swayed by lack of rest. You'll get no closer to the truth tonight. Comedy tonight. We declare a night of happiness and drive all thoughts that trouble us away by this decree. We assume the right, so have as much authority as they. We'll rule tonight as lords of revelry and fill our courts with lovers, clowns and such, and lose ourselves in comedies and songs and things we might regret, but not too much. We'll have no words of worrying tonight, and when the dawn returns that we forget, within the memory of what we did, the songs will rise and dances pirouette. Grass and Earth. This is a fairly new one about the difficulty or impossibility of conveying certain experiences, that our language hasn't evolved to tell them, that so much of our language has evolved around sight and sound that other senses, yes, are ineffable, as it's put. Grass and earth. You'll know the smell of this grass and earth, or feel these winds from what I write of them. What words tell these things? Our language has been shaped by sight and sound. Though I call them rich or fresh, what is it that I mean? You'll understand me differently. We have no categories like green for telling this. To call you here, to smell the compost laid on sand, know the movements of the grass of this instead of other land, as roots descend and tiny creatures crawl, and feel the soft winds below, and know the smell of this grass and earth, and rest where words have yet to go. Ducks in a Garden, Cape Town. It begins with a quote from Douglas Reed Skinner from his poem Picking Oranges. Your seeing changes everything. Ducks are rooted in grass, still damp with dew, as sunlight glows from a cloudless sky, gleaming on the leaves of cup of gold that tremble around a false acacia's frame. I play no part, but this would not have been if I weren't here to glimpse the peaceful scene. I watch them pace beside a garden wall, busy in their vivid, tactile world, beneath hibiscus open to the sun, as morning's chatter drifts among the trees. I play no part, but this would not have been if I weren't here to glimpse the peaceful scene. And then just two more. Revolution. A goose stands one-legged on a chimney, head on breast beside a gibbous moon of ghostly white, in blue and golden light as earth revolves to noon. There's no sadness here among the roofs, or in the light and shadows of the trees, beneath the moon, beside a goose that stands unmoving as a frieze. Their figures dance as if their world endured, and they might pass beneath the gibbous moon of ghostly white in blue and golden light as earth revolves to noon. And to finish, Intertown, which is set on Nelson Mandela Boulevard in Cape Town. A line of palms divides the motorway, and when it's windy and the sun is bright, the palm fronds buck and sway and catch the light, like waves that glimmer in the wind-blown day, or plastic shaped to somebody's design in buildings that appear as cars descend towards the town. around the mountain bend and down past fronds that change, as if a sign that what awaits is not what lies behind. And driver's spirits lift, not knowing why. They feel the promises of days gone by, when they might travel into town to find a holiday's amusement with their friends, or glimpse a time when such a thing might be, that here between the mountains and the sea their lives might yet be turned to other ends. Palm fronds buck and sway and catch the light. The day is windy and the sun's bright. Thank you.
Please can we put our hands together for Stuart on that beautiful reading. What we always do now is we have a question and answer session and a short break and an open mic session. And I'm not quite sure whether there's someone in the room who will call out hands. Can I ask someone to volunteer perhaps to do that and to call out the hands that are on the screen?
I can try and do that.
That'll be, it's you. Yes, please. I would love that.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah.
There aren't any hands at the moment. I've got a question, but I can wait with this.
6 to return to the meeting controls button.
I think go for it.
Okay, well, Stuart, that was such a lovely reading. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm always struck by many things when I hear your poems, and one of those is just the musicality and the control and the fluidity of your words. I'm stumbling around here, but I also love the groupings of your poems. They're really the riffs. They play off each other, so it's beautiful. And I think what has always struck me about your poems is your evocation of loss and transience. And one of the things that paradoxically or otherwise makes the poem so strong is that I, as one listener, I feel returned to the present moment by I feel that your poems make me feel alive, because you in wanderings, memories, and I'm losing my thread here, but there's just a beautiful paradox in your poetry with those evocations of loss and transience. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey.
I've been trying recently to bring my poems more into the moment, more happier poems, basically.
Yeah.
So it gives a form to the book or the manuscript.
But a real gift to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacques, do you want to go for it with your question? You're muted, Jacques.
Order.
That better?
Yes.
Okay. So I was really struck. I mean, I want to echo what Ed said. I've found a lot of joy. I always find a lot of joy in your poems, but they do really tangle with grief at a deep level. And I'm thinking of the poem where you talk about those who have no grief. And it sounds as if you're saying that in a way, grief itself gives comfort. There was something about the way the line ran tonight that almost made it sound as if you were saying that grief itself eventually gives comfort. Is that wishful thinking on my part, or is it that grief or poetry or something? What is that relationship between poetry and grief and comfort in your work, do you think?
I'm not sure if it brings comfort. It brings a sort of comfort. It brings a recognition, I think.
Yes.
A recognition and an organizing, which are important in as a human ritual, I think.
But it's you wouldn't say it's the, I can't remember if it was Heaney or who it was who said that, you know, the job of a poet is to give comfort in dark times. I wouldn't say that's maybe that it's as simple as that in your work.
I'd like to think people could be comforted. Some of them, a few of them from a while ago are very dark, I suppose. And at least there's an importance in it. There's a recognition of the importance of the grief.
Yes.
Yes, that I think is at least better than its lack.
Yes. Yes. Pretending.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's positive or a comfort, but it is a positive force. Yes.
Yes. I felt that very strongly tonight. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
There aren't any other hands in the room. Douglas, would you like to say anything? Douglas, you're muted.
I've just been mulling over the thought that we accentuate sight and sound and de-accentuate, say, touch and taste and smell. I think smell is probably the most heavily de-accentuated and disguised of the senses, and yet it would appear to be the oldest, with two different pathways into the brain. But the question that I wanted to pose to Stuart is this: can one ever, we are social animals, can one ever get outside language and into a state of pure sensory perception? In other words, can one ever not be intermediated? Can one's being be disintermediated by language? And if it is possible, how on earth does one communicate it?
I don't think it's possible without some severe brain injury, perhaps. Babies must have it. We're certainly, I think, aware of a vast amount of experience that can't be precisely described, or the whole of experience can't be precisely described, because we're using words that aren't entirely suited for the situation. Yes, but there remains a whole lot within us, I think, that we're aware of that is beyond language, I think. But of course, we're only aware of it in terms of our conscious language-dominated mind.
There's that strange thing in poetry in which it's constantly trying to get rid of the ladder underneath up which it's climbed. In its effort to express the ineffable, it has to kind of wipe the ladder away as it climbs up the ladder of language. It's a peculiar thing. And I think one of the systems of attention, let me call it, that interested me early on in my life was Zen Buddhism, and particularly the practice of Zazen. And it seems to me, and here I am perhaps betraying the idea of Zen, but it seems to me one's Western view of Zazen, or the practice of Zen, seems to me to be largely about trying to get into a state of being that is outside of language, that lets go of language and becomes pure being. Well, that's how it would seem from the outside.
Yes, I've been working a bit with meditation and the difference between, oh God.
No, cat, not God.
The difference between thinking and awareness, and yes, of trying to remove yourself from thinking about something and just be aware of it. Of course, that awareness is only has been formed entirely through language itself.
Right. That's me.
There are in the Pacific Islands, there are tribes who can describe taste and smell with as much precision as we do sight or sound. So it is possible for the human brain to go down those lines of thinking and map them very precisely. Unfortunately, the languages, I think, are only spoken by a couple of hundred or 1,000 people. So.
That's lovely. We can't be very sure. I think if everyone's ready, and if there aren't any other questions, if we can have a 5-minute break. I also just want to say thank you to Douglas for improving the sound. That was a good idea to just move closer to the phone. Wonderful. Can we have one more hand for Stuart, please? And we'll be back in 5. And Ed, if I can ask you to just call out the hands when we come back, that would be great.
I'll do that, no problem.